Okay, welcome everyone. Welcome to tonight's Freedom Thinking via Donation Community Group. The date is the 24th of February 2025. So welcome. My name's Dave Ellery. This is Jenny Ellery. Has been Anderson, has been Kennard. I've only ever been David Ellery. So yeah, tonight, bear with me, also just get my head together. It's been a full-on day. Yeah, I just want to say, anybody who's watching this in catch up, thank you for clicking and watching. We know most people watch this in catch up. Most people don't come to the actual event. It's lovely to have you lot on screen now. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all so much for making the effort and finding the time. Your time is greatly appreciated by Jenny and myself, because like we say, talking to a blank screen is crap. So thank you everybody for being here. We really, really appreciate it. And thank you everybody who does watch us on catch up. It's nice. We got a beautiful message from a lady who made a donation to us. And it's always lovely getting the feedback from people, what people are hearing, and just let people who let us know that they're hearing and receiving, and they're growing and finding benefit. You know, when we receive those messages, it makes it so much more worthwhile for Jenny and I. So yeah, thank you to everybody who's donated. And again, this is a via donation event. We do these via donation to make them accessible to everyone. Did I pause just then? No, all right. You lot did. We do these via donation to make these accessible to people. Yeah, it's the way Jenny and I choose to do these. People who can donate, we ask you, please do donate. You know, it helps us keep, it's our work, it's how we make our money, it's our business. But those who are seriously can't afford to donate, you know, we still want you to have access to it as well. We hope you find benefit, and please drop us emails, info@freedomthinking.co.uk, and let us know what you're hearing. Let us know if what we bring helps, please. We love to hear it. It was so nice to receive that message, wasn't it? What was she called? Joe?
Yeah.
Thank you, Joe. Joe, thank you for that, love. Yeah, if you wish to make a donation, you can either get in contact with us. That's what Joe did. And we sent her our bank details and our PIN numbers and stuff, and
Not PIN numbers.
do we not? All right. You didn't.
Not a PIN number.
Oh. And another way you can donate is via PayPal. Info@freedomthinking.co.uk. If you have a PayPal account, our PayPal name is, or ID is, info@freedomthinking.co.uk. We have a website, freedomthinking.co.uk. We work with people. If you're interested in working with us directly and coming to see us and spend time with us, please get in touch. We love people. We love helping people. So I think, oh, we got an event going on in Morocco, all being well.
Yeah, it's definitely going ahead.
Is it? Cool. What dates?
14th of May.
14th of May. Any more information, anybody who's interested, it's actually quite cheap. And all the profits that are made from this event, they're getting put, we're not getting paid for it. They're getting, neither's any other speaker, they're getting put into a kitty which is going to be helping people who are not in a position to go on holiday. They're going to get taken away on holiday with their families, and you know, it's a pay it forward thing. So you're
Out
actually
to the same place in Morocco.
Yeah, out to Morocco. So it's for people who can't afford it. So I think that's a really beautiful thing. So there's going to be some lucky people following the event, going out to Morocco. Anything else?
That's good. Well done.
Did it? Did it? Oh, like, subscribe, and comment.
Well done.
So,
I'm
all right, I will. I'll drink my brew.
There's something I was going to speak about, if people don't mind, and I don't know if you have anything to add to this. I think you probably have a lot to add
You
to
know
it.
me.
I've had a friend this week who has been having conversations with a family member, and like it's a bit of a back and forth around the principals being somehow to do with the head, the brain, and that actually it's only about 20% of life, and this, you know, the body's like the rest of it. So there's been this discussion going on, and it's been really interesting for me to kind of listen and then get really reflective on that, because I feel like what Sid pointing to was the whole, it was the wholeness of life. It was pointing to what creates all life, the brain and the body and the form. And I think it can be the misunderstanding in the word thought that creates this idea that somehow the principles is talking about the brain, because the misunderstanding is that thought is located in the brain, or that thought is something in the world of form. And I think Sid continually said, you know, these are spiritual principles. They're before the creation of form. So they're not, they're what creates everything, but they're not of this world, is the way that he described it. They're not of this world of form that we see. And I felt like the other misunderstanding in that conversation, from what I could hear, you know, it's very one-sided. I had one person's description of it, was that the principles, if you come across the principles, then that should solve everything, fix everything. And then I realized, well, the Sid was never about solving or fixing problems, because he realized that once you look behind and you see what creates, you see what problems and issues are born of. He would also say wonderful things like life is a contact sport. Life's going to happen. We're going to have people and lose people and all those kind of really hard things. People are going to have some stuff happen in life that just blows my mind, and I can't believe they have to deal with it. I don't know if any of you who were on the community on the retreat heard Goodell speaking about some of the refugees that are just arriving in New Zealand from the Congo. Some of the stuff they've witnessed and been through was unthinkable. But I do feel like what the principles offers and brings is you point people back to their nature, to their self, to that unbreakable source before the form, before any of this, before the ego, before the character. And I think when people touch on that or find that space, or however we want to describe it, they start making very different choices and decisions for their life. And that might be that there's something that appeals to them in meditation, or it might be that they love the idea of doing body work, or reflexology, or any of these other modalities might appeal to them. So the principles isn't telling anyone what to do or what not to do. It's purely helping them reconnect or remember who they actually are, who they were before the story, who they were before opening their eyes and seeing the world of form. And I think that was the message. And see that this life that we live is an illusion of thought, mind, and consciousness. And that doesn't in any way take away from the fact that we get to be here and have an experience, because I don't even know what that means. Because this totally looks real and 3D and you can touch it. But I also see that my experience of life can go from one of being absolute like beauty and pleasure and gratitude to feeling down and worried and anxious in one thought. I can switch and then you get a full body sensation. So I see that is the illusion, that we try and look for a constant in what comes and goes and changes. But we always encourage people to look within themselves and find that they're free. You're free to discover and explore this life. This isn't a to do or not to do. And I think from what she was saying, it was, you know, the principles is dangerous. And I think there can be ideas and concepts created that can be damaging for people. But I feel like Sid's message was one of love. And I don't think there's any danger in love. I think he was pointing to the truest, deepest nature of all life, and that was love. And as human beings, we get misunderstandings and we create concepts and ideas and we build.
Misunderstanding can be dangerous.
Yeah,
It's like mycology. We like mycology. We like going hunting funguses and
you
stuff
like
like that. I like it. I like picking mushrooms and like foraging, but a little bit of knowledge with mycology, Joseph will be testament to this. Like a little bit of knowledge with mycology could be an extremely dangerous thing. You really have to kind of know your shit when it comes to mushrooms and funguses and stuff like that. It really helps. I nearly poisoned my ex-wife and I one day when I got some field mushrooms and I cut them up and they turned yellow. I'm like, it was only because I cut them up and then got distracted and went out the room, came back, then they turned yellow. I hadn't chucked them in the pot. If I chucked them in the pot, we'd have eaten these Agricus xantharia, I think they were called. They call them yellow stainers. They can put you in kidney dialysis for life. But because I got distracted for whatever reason and left the room for 2 minutes, came back and the mushrooms had turned yellow. I'm like, well, field mushrooms shouldn't do this. I should have known when I picked them from underneath a cypress hedge that they weren't field mushrooms. But that's that little bit of knowledge kind of thing. That can be dangerous.
yeah.
So
Yeah, it just felt I think in any community or any field, there's going to be different levels and ways and people sharing. So you're going to get, like Dave and I have a flavor, like we share from how we see this, and we point from that place, and other people do from what makes sense to them. But I feel like everybody involved in this community that I've ever met or had any experience of has wanted to be in service.
Yeah.
They've wanted to help alleviate suffering. And I do understand that some people will misunderstand the message, or the message they won't find benefit in the way that they hear it. But I don't know, I feel like there is so many people who just share from a place of pure love and service. And I appreciate every single one of them, because without the people, coming across Sid and then starting to share, I wouldn't have come across this and it wouldn't have changed my life. But I feel like it's the totality of the principles can often seem too expansive maybe, or too abstract to speak about. And we often as human beings have found it helpful, and I found it helpful to hear that the reason you feel like you feel is because you think like you think. That was a profound statement for me, because I had kind of believed that the reason I felt like I felt was because of what was happening out there, what had happened in my past, whatever, my personality. So that was a profound statement, but it didn't stop there. The message was then, but do you know what? There's this deeper mind, this deeper aspect to life, that when you start to be interested and connect with that, then the form starts to look different. The way that we see the world starts to look different. But I'll say it again, like this is about introducing people to the freedom that exists within them, which is why the retreat was called Ocean of Freedom. So it's not in any way telling people what to do, or I think we felt like we just play with life and explore and try new things. But if I feel privileged because when I came across this, it's like I knew I'd stumbled across something so true and so constant and so powerful that I could forever rely upon, that I can explore anything and listen to different talks and read different books and listen to different teachers and get really intrigued. But I haven't ever felt the need to try and find another answer, because it felt like it answered everything.
It's like that
But
saying the Book of Thomas, isn't it?
the only thing I was going to say, but there's been aspects of being a physical human being that sometimes I've gone and had something called myofascial release, which was for a back problem. And when I was having this done, like the experience I had was bizarre. Like my body just started moving for itself, and then like memories came back. Then the next day I had like a big like meltdown, and all this emotion came out, and I was like, wow, there's so much about life I don't understand. But I'm so grateful that I listen to what feels right for me in my life, and I don't take advice from anybody who says, oh, if you understand the principles, then you shouldn't, whatever. It's allowed me to
And
be
also, don't
free.
do that to yourself.
Yeah.
You know, that's another big thing. If I shouldn't, I've had insight, you know, I shouldn't feel like this can be a real,
Yeah.
it can be a real cross to bear, can't it? Yeah, it's interesting because I didn't know you were going to talk about this tonight, but um, we've literally run in, had eaten some tea, then Lucia's gone to sleep, and
Lucia had a naked 5 minutes.
yeah, she had
She
naked
had it, and it was
5 minutes,
like,
read her some
"Let's get my
books.
clothes off and have my naked five
Yeah,
minutes. I'm like, okay.
we hadn't had a chance really to converse. But it's interesting because this individual was saying that, and they've been around this for a very long time. They were saying that, you know, thought is only 20% the rest of its body. And trauma is stored in the body. Now, this is the misunderstanding, like I feel you're speaking to. I see this is how I see it personally. Now, I'll run it by you. You can all make up your own minds. But when Jen spoke about the totality of the principles, this is did I freeze? Was it not? Cool. It's you lot. You're freezing. You're freezing at the same time. Stop it. Trying to freak me out. You know, this notion that trauma is stored in the body. Now, I'm not saying it isn't, but we've got to kind of gain a deeper understanding into the nature of trauma itself if we really want to start to heal it. You don't have to, you know, people throughout life will walk along one day and suddenly a cloud lifts out of their being and they go, oh, wow. It happens. But it does seem like the more we understand life, the more we start to gain insight into its nature, its constants, well, how its laws, its how it works. It's like we start to experience more peace. And trauma seems to be a thing that affects us a lot less. You see, in my mind, trauma is based in an illusion. And when I say this with absolute love and understanding of for people who are experiencing it. Please don't think I'm being condescending or rude or horrible or saying you're doing life wrong, because I'm not. I'm not. I promise you I'm not. I've been there. It's dog shit. It's it's real. It's it hurts. So please don't think I'm being condescending in any way. But when it comes to trauma, we have to understand, we have to start to gain some insight into it. And, you know, trauma itself is based in the illusion of time. Okay, time is a concept of the mind. Time, even Einstein himself said, time is relative. Time is relative to the individual. Time is something, it's a subjective experience. You know, if you are sat in a waiting room waiting to see somebody, perhaps, I don't know, a doctor or something, you know, time can look like it's passing really, really slowly. You look at the clock and you're like, oh, it's 5 past 4. How long's it been now? Oh, 8 minutes past 4, 10 past 4, 12 minutes past 4. Like, but if you're busy, wrapped up doing something, like if I'm doing the van or putting cupboards in the van, you know, all day can go in the blink of an eye. And that's why Einstein said time's relative. But if you look at time itself, it's actually, it's an illusion. There is no such thing. There is just the eternal now. You never leave the now. There is just movement and creation in the now. You know, this changes. This is going to change. That's going to change. But when it's always going to be now, time is an illusion. And trauma is based in that illusion. It's based in time. Now, trauma is based in thought. You cannot experience trauma without thought because it's a memory. It's something that's remembered. Okay. Trauma is held in the body, while a memory is held, it is remembered, it is experienced, but it no longer exists. The event that took place no longer exists. It's a memory. It happened, but now it's a thought. One of the things you were speaking to was, people, this individual was saying, that it comes from the head. Thought comes from the head. Now, in my experience of gaining insight into the principles and the power of thought, the brain, you don't actually need a brain to think. I know that might sound absolutely ridiculous and controversial, but you don't. And I'll give you two examples. One was a girl who she was badly injured in a car accident. She was taken to hospital, and she was an American girl, and she suffered a severe head trauma. And this girl, one, she drove, and two, she was an honorary student in a university. She lived a perfectly normal life, a deeply intelligent girl. When they did a brain scan on her, all she had was a brain stem. No frontal lobe, no left and right. Missing massive part of her brain, the predominant bulk of her brain was missing. There was just space in her skull. Yet she could function like a normal human being. So I don't know the ins and outs, I don't claim to, but the fact that that can take place and actually be an actual thing, Google it, you can find it, then it suggests that thought and brain are not an essential thing. They're not it's not essential for thought to take place. You do not necessarily need to have brain. I mean, I think it's a pretty frigging useful thing for me to have. I don't want to get rid of mine. Nobody had, volunteered to get rid of mine for the crack. See how we get on. But it's an interesting point that in spite of having no brain, only a brain stem, this lady could have a perfectly functional life, hold a relationship together, be buoyant. And another perfectly simple observation of thought without not needing a brain is just looking at the plant kingdom. Watching plants and watching trees, watch how they interact with one another, watch how the plant knows what time of year it is, watch how it knows where the sun is, watching the daisies track across the sky following the sun, watching how trees don't grow into one another. Look at a mimosa tree plant. When you stroke it, it collapses and hides. Venus flytraps, kids play with the Venus flytraps, and they close up when they become aware that they've been touched twice. They have to be touched twice. If they touch once, they don't close. If they touch twice, then they'll close. They count. They think. And I remember reading this in one of my forestry magazines about they know how trees think, but they don't know how because they don't have a brain. And that is one of the misconceptions of the power of thought. Thought came before brain. Thought is the spiritual essence of creation. It came before the brain. It dreamt up the brain. Whatever this phenomenal consciousness is, this mind is, that whatever underpins this reality is, dreamt up the brain and created it. And this brain appears to have such elasticity, and it can recreate itself in any given moment. So when we're talking about the power of thought only being 20%, I think that's a really big misunderstanding as to about the nature of thought itself. Each cell, they've noticed, it was one of the only books I've ever read is by Dr. Bruce Lipton, The Biology of Belief, and he was one of the pioneers in epigenetics. And one of his first discoveries was which led me towards the discovery of epigenetics, was that you remove a cell from the body, a stem cell from the body at this point, and put it into a petri dish. It'll survive on its own. It will take in nutrients. It will shy away from toxins. It will excrete. It will live for a couple of weeks on its own, separate to the body. it was capable of making decisions, it could think. So, and we're built of 50 trillion of those. So we've got 50 trillion cells that are conscious, aware thinkers. So we're not just talking about thought being located in the body. And I don't claim to be an expert on this, but we must expand our understanding and let go of any kind of prejudices we have towards thought, or any ideas that will limit us in our understanding of ourself and the full magnitude of what it is to be human. So this trauma thing being stored in the body, trauma is thought. It's a memory. How can you have a memory without thought? The body remembers. How can the body remember without thought? It makes no sense. It can't. And also, people can realize their way out of trauma. That's what happened to me. I had a realization. I realized my way out of all my suffering, my chronic depression, my anxiety, my I'm not good enough, most of my idiocy. I won't say all of it. Most of my idiocy. And it totally rearranged my biology, my whole chemical levels changed. And I had such worn neurological pathways, but they all changed. They have to have changed if it's true that the brain neurology is what's going on, if you know what I mean. But they all changed. They all changed in the moment. And what changed was realization. It was a shift in awareness. It was a discovery of something new that lay at the heart of my being. And the thing is, when I found that thing that lay at the heart of my being, I knew I'd found the thing that lay at the heart of everyone's being, which is why I know everybody's all right, which is why I know everybody's healthy, which is why I know everybody is spiritually safe, which is why I know this whole thing's a game. It's all an illusion, as Jenny was saying. So yeah, we just want to kind of uncomplicate this. Because when we were listening to this conversation, there was conversation about this gets released and that gets released, and then this gland opens up or whatever. And it's like, at that point, what's the point in knowing all that information? What am I going to do about that? It sounds very clever and very technical, and it sounds like you know what you're talking about. But how do I negotiate that? What do I do with that information in order to experience a more beautiful life and to set myself free? Does it help that I know how the body works? Does it help? Well, I don't think Jesus knew anything about whatever the body kind of system. I don't think Buddha did either. I don't think Sid Banks did. I know I didn't need to in order to. I know it became very, very complicated, and I thought I was handed a death sentence when I was told I'd have a chemical imbalance for life and I'd need medicating for it for life, and I'd need to always be on these balancing tablets. But when I realized this dream of life, when I realized the dream of reality, and it's obvious it's a dream of reality, we're all dreaming different realities. Therefore, it must be a dream of reality. We're all dreaming our own different realities. Everybody experiences their own life in their own unique way, and everybody thinks their way is the right way, and everybody thinks their reality is the real reality, the true reality. It's the dream of life that the mystic spoke of. When I realized that was the thing that did all the heavy lifting. When I saw there was nothing to be afraid of, anything that I am afraid of, any of my traumas, they're a thought. Nothing more, nothing less.
I think part of the discussion was around how the body trauma creates thoughts to keep you in a low kind of state. And it was fascinating because I was thinking, but form can't create more form. There has to be a power. And I was thinking, well, I know that, if you take drugs or alcohol, it influences how you think. Like it does affect how we think. So I know there's definitely things that seem to change the way that we think, but without the power of thought, there would be nothing.
But you can sober up in a moment as well, can't you?
Yeah. But it was just fascinating. So I love pushing my own logic. I love listening to new things and looking for, is there something else simpler? Is there something else? And it was just this idea that somehow the body created experience, the body created thought, thoughts, and that was somehow independent from the principles. And it fascinated me that that seemed to make sense to somebody else. I know for them it makes total sense. But it feels like the principles had to still underpin that. Because I know that they kind of know now that more information goes from the gut to the brain than the brain to the gut. So
And the heart.
a lot of people are getting more and more interested in, getting the gut healthy for mental health, physical and physical health. Like we know it's really, really important. But there still has to be something before body, before. So I'd love when you've had your hand up for a while, and I'd love to hear what other people's kind of comments or thoughts about this are.
Yeah, I agree with both of you that that trauma is a memory. And for the first time today, what I heard just in the verbiage that was exchanged over the Zoom call here, that trauma is stored in the body. All of a sudden, I had something dropped in of, if I was traumatized, let's make up a story. Wendy was attacked violently in the back seat of a Buick car when she was in high school. Didn't happen, but let's pretend it did. And at that point in time, I made a decision that I would never be in a car again with a young man for the rest of my life. That is a bodily whatever. It is form. It has become real in the sense of, since 1975, Wendy's never been in a car, a Buick or whatever car, with a young man by herself for the rest of that time. So my trauma was stored in my body. It's a different way of looking at it, but there was a decision that I made, right? Or, make up whatever, we all know people who had sexual child abuse or whatever. They never step foot in a Catholic church again for the rest of their lives. I mean, there's some bodily repercussions from the thing that happened back in the day. There is something that has stood the test of time, and it's not to negate the principles. I'm just like, I love what Jenny just said, poking and pushing her own logic, and I'm poking and pushing my own, because up until just now, I was thinking the same way, along the same lines that you did, is that to live with the sense of like, oh, I'm a damaged person, this happened to me, and it's stored in my body, and I need some sort of myofascial release, or I need something to take it out, is above the principles. It is form, taking care of form, as you said. So I agree. And I'm also intrigued with the fact of what is another way that the trauma is stored in the body, those English words might be looked at, which is, I made a decision after my trauma happened when I was in high school that has affected the rest of my life. And what experiences do I no longer have access to because I never got in the car with another man for the rest of my life? Do you know what I mean? So I find that kind of an interesting thing that I'm playing with. I heard one time a teacher that I had in the principles long ago said it's like Play-Doh. Just stretch it, play with it, remold it, put it down, sniff it. Play-Doh smells really good, whatever. But I'm just kind of playing with that idea in this moment of what does trauma stored in the body, what's another way of looking at that? And I wonder if there's something where the preform understanding of the principles might have an inroad to somebody that thought in a particular way, but if you kind of broaden the aperture or took the blinders back a little bit, it may have some room to go in there as a useful understanding as opposed to living with a misunderstanding. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you.
Nice, Wen. Thank you. Look.
I think when you were speaking, what kept coming to me is the fact that so much of our experience is totally unconscious thought. So it's what we call unconscious thought, is that it's we're not mind and body, we're just consciousness. And I think that when you were speaking, I was thinking that to me is what makes sense, is that there's thought that we see and there's thought that we don't see. And I know that there's been thought in my life that's run certain areas and I've done things unconsciously without even knowing. There's nothing, it's just as it is. And then suddenly you become aware and you get more choice. I know that there's certain things that can happen, and I always seem to have this like response, like it's a complete nervous system response to something. But there's also been the odd occasion where it hasn't happened. So there is no permanence to us in that sense. And I think that's the thing that kept coming back, is there's no permanence in this world of form. We are fluid. And actually somebody who had made that decision in your kind of scenario, when that was not on their mind, they were just living a life. And then they could probably bring it back to life, and then it may influence other areas of their lives unconsciously, but we're fluid beings because we don't exist in this, just in this form. And the amount, of people that have had out-of-body experiences, and, I don't know what people think about that, but I've found it fascinating hearing about it, thinking, wow, all experience, but without any of this form. And there's still something that is aware, can think, and is intelligent and divine, and that
More
kind of,
real.
yeah. But yeah, I like what you said, and it was interesting listening because I could see, stuff popping into my own mind.
Yeah, that's nice. And I think, something that occurred to me was the initial trauma. Again, I'm not belittling anyone or making anything small. I'm really not. But when I look back at my own life, one of the greatest gifts I had looking in this direction was realizing that the initial trauma itself was a perspective that I held, as is every other moment, just the same as every other moment. Like, I don't know, I grew up quite afraid of men. My father was quite a strong character. I grew up quite afraid of men, which is probably why I ended up being a hard man and defending myself against men. It was quite traumatic at times growing up with all the grumpiness and the argument and the shouting and I found that quite traumatic. And, I lived my life because I believed that, because I only held that perspective that I held at that time. I didn't know anything better. I live my life from that belief. So I need to be bigger. I need to be bigger than them. I need to be stronger than them. I need to make myself safe. I don't feel safe in this world and I don't feel good enough. Those big men, they seem to be safe, and so I went to the gym and I made myself big, strong and fit, and I was strong and fit and I could handle myself and I did. But then one day I remember seeing my father differently. And it was after we'd had a big row. I remember this one day I saw my father differently. I saw him hurting. I saw him hurt. I saw a hurt man, not an aggressive man. I saw a hurt man. And suddenly my father changed in front of my eyes. That was one of the moments I really saw again that reality is an experience from within. If somebody can change in front of your eyes, it's not coming from outside. The trauma was not coming from outside, it was coming from inside me. It wasn't created by the circumstance, it was created by my perspective I created and held, the belief I held throughout time. And the moment I saw my father differently, the trauma died.
Mhm.
You know, and that version of my father died. And all of a sudden we started to have our relationship opened up, and I have the best relationship with my dad now. I'm so grateful I'm so grateful I get to say that I have a fucking awesome dad. And I love him dearly. I'm so grateful. But seeing that the trauma that I had experienced was actually a perspective that I was holding. Well, what is a perspective created from? It's created from thought. It's a belief. It was being created, recreated over and over again by the belief that I held. The belief's it's almost like when you believe, now a belief cannot be separate. Can a belief be separate from thought? I don't think so. How could it possibly be? So here we are, we're back to thought again, but beliefs are what shape the color of our realities. You know, people see what they believe. So look around the world, what do we have at the moment? We've got these massive divides politically of people seeing opposites in humanity. They see polarization. Why? Because we all believe different things. We all think differently. And because we all believe different things, we assume that because it looks real to us, we think it's true. Because it looks real to us, we assume it must be true. 8 billion, apparently. I don't even know if that's true. Human beings on Earth. I don't know. I haven't counted them. I've given over being just idly believing everything I'm told. I like to feel into things and go, do I trust that? Do I believe that? And most of the time I come back to, you know, I don't know. So I'm just going to remain open on that. But if there is 8 billion people on the planet, then that's 8 billion versions of reality just in human form walking the earth.
Mhm.
Whose reality is the true reality? Who is it? Or is this really just a massive spiritual game? Is this really a massive spiritual illusion? You know, when we're talking about the principles, we have to go bigger. We have to look from the eye of singularity, God eye, and look at this reality. We have to look at it from that perspective. We've got to go bigger than ourself. We've got self being the ego, that I'm right, but what about this? But what about the body? The body and mind are not separate. Body and mind are not separate.
Mm.
However, mind does not need a body. It created, for whatever reason, it created human beings to experience itself, to experience the diversity of infinite reality that it truly is, which makes us that too. We are that. That is who and what we truly are. And that discovering that is where the magic lies. So,
I agree. I agree. And from another part of my life, for my world, there's a phrase that says winning the right to be heard. And what I'm playing with in the Play-Doh is the curiosity of saying, yes, trauma does live in the body because look at you. You won't get in the car with another other man by yourself. It is embodied. Your trauma is embodied. And let me share with you, perhaps if you're interested, something that may help open this up a little bit more to you and share the principles in a way. But if you first, like, I'm just pretending that I'm a coach of somebody that's come to me and says, I have trauma that it's locked in my body, and somebody told me to talk to you, Wendy. I want to be able to say something that is affirming and acknowledging of their perspective so that I can keep in relationship with them.
yeah.
And by saying, well, I don't know if you realize this, but your thought is, you're just kind of remembering something that happened in the past, but it's really not happening anymore. There really is nothing stored in your body. I think it would be a short phone call, right? Or a short Zoom call. So that's what I'm kind of curious about. How, like your example of you and your dad, you said one day, all of a sudden, he looked very different to you. But the day before and the 20 years before that, this is my dad. He's a hard man, and he and I don't really have a lot in common. And now I'm going to go out and build up my body so that I can fight off men like him. You had a lived experience. And so I'm just curious about acknowledging that lived experience in somebody else in order to take things back to a more foundational, formless, spiritual place. So anyway, I hope I'm not confusing, but
No, I don't know. Not sure. Not sure when. Um, but for myself, you know, is it locked in the body? Is it locked in the
I
body?
would say no, but if I want to talk to somebody
Yeah, you see,
and that's what they think and believe, I have to at least say something that is I can see where you've been locked up in this trauma that you've had for the past 20 years, young
yeah,
lady, or whatever. I want to acknowledge it somehow and
it
be with
seems to
it
me,
somehow in order to open up the curtains to something bigger and deeper. That's just what I'm thinking right now.
seems to me that what you're really doing there is you're coming from kindness and love and listening to the person, which, if anybody is ever wanting to help the next person, I would always suggest coming from kindness and love and listening. But when you look at thought, when you look at thought, it has no physical form. You can't hold a thought. You can't weigh a thought. You can't cut it. You can't cut open the skull and see a thought. You can't measure it. How long is it? Where is it? We're talking about a formless power. And like Jen said, anybody who's had these near-death experiences, and I've had my own, I know fine well consciousness continues beyond this physical dimension. I've had my own experiences. But there are also people who've had experiences that blow mine out of the water as far as I'm concerned. And they're not uncommon. They're really not uncommon. But it's like we must start to understand, because I feel like it's in our misunderstanding do we create more suffering. It's in our misunderstanding, it's in looking the wrong direction. It's in looking in the wrong direction. You're trying to see the most beautiful view on the planet, but you're looking in the wrong direction. You can't understand why you can't see it. But it's behind you. We've been encouraged to look in the wrong direction, and a lot of these encouragements of misunderstanding have kind of led to more suffering, and the idea, well, there's something physically wrong with me. I'm a physically diseased person. My disease, I was told I had I was psychologically ill. And an illness is a physical thing. It's something that takes place within the physiology. I was told that by medical experts. I was not psychologically ill. I live with misunderstanding about reality. The same as the psychological experts. They wholeheartedly believed in the concept of time. They have to have done in order to continually regress me back into suffering, thinking that somehow taking me into suffering is going to bring me out and bring me back to peace.
I was just aware of the time. I'd love to hear if anyone else had anything to say to kind of on that. And then I was going to sort of read this question.
Yeah.
That's right.
Or do you want to have a quick break? Or?
I'll just see if anyone else wanted to
Yeah.
say anything to what we've been talking about. And then we'll have a quick break. break?
Quick break.
Quick break it is then.
But I just think it's perfectly normal for human beings to remember the past. It's perfectly normal for us to associate kind of thoughts with things, feelings with things.
It's like I found a scarf in a charity shop, which I thought was beautiful. It's silk and wool, and often charity shop stuff doesn't smell very nice. So I was like, check to smell it to see if we could be able to wash it before we gave it to your mum. I was like, oh my God, that's so weird. That smells of my auntie's house. That smells of my auntie. That smells of my childhood. And like I was just flooded with this like
Memory.
full body experience of like being a kid again.
Oh, it's amazing.
So what can happen? Like, and there's certain, like a song can play. A song came on the other day, and I said to Dave, "Oh my God, this is me and Faye when she just passed her driving test." And blah, blah, blah. You're like, "Oh, this is me and Rach, and we were doing this." And like you're suddenly back in that experience.
Yeah.
So something kind of a song came on, and suddenly you're in the experience of something 20 years ago, and you're kind of lost in that thought.
That's it. Everything is remembered on some level. On some level, everything is remembered. On some level. And that's one of the amazing things about when you start to have these realizations. You start, oh shit, I remembered something I'd forgot. I'd never thought I'd ever remember for the rest of my life. I remembered it. You know, and sometimes you just get access to these random memories. We remember everything. But that's perfectly how it's meant to be. If it wasn't, we wouldn't be built like it. We wouldn't have the capacity to be it. So let's take that break.
Yeah.
Back in 10.
Other question.
Hey, welcome back, everyone. And again, in YouTube, seamless. We did just have a break.
So I'm gonna
Okay.
paraphrase the question that we've had via email.
Yep.
So the person was saying that they try to share this understanding when they can with their students, because there's a lot of sort of mental health problems in schools. But they kind of feel like when they share, it ends up sort of going into teacher mode and being more from like a pre-heard, memory-based teaching of the principles rather than the truth of the principles. And when they notice they're doing that, they try and drop it. But then they get a lot of like, try and drop the thinking, and then they get more thinking about dropping it, and then they just get busy-minded. So in a way, it's quite funny, but then it's also a bit frustrating because they feel like the students could get more benefit if they could just get present and kind of share in the moment and not be in teacher mode. So that was, could we speak a bit to that? I'd be interested to hear.
Go on, you go.
It's funny, when my dad was still a head teacher, he always used to say, "Come on, let's do some work with teachers. Let's do an event." I'm like, "Yeah, definitely." And then like months would go by, and then he'd say it again, and then it's like, "Why can I not pin you down with this?" I was like, "Oh God, the idea of trying to teach teachers." And he just said to me, "Teachers are people too." And I think that's the thing that came to mind is, you know, whether it's a student, a teacher, a friend, a colleague, when we just kind of get present with people and we're not trying to teach anything, I don't know, kind of words find us and we listen. And I feel like that's one of the things that I started to realise about this understanding is that the more that we listen, you know, our mind might be busy and we might be listening thinking, oh, I've got something good I could say about that. But then we just keep listening. We generally do become more and more relaxed, and we're able to then kind of point and guide to this understanding in a really simple way. But I think it's that idea that we have something to teach or we have something they need to hear can get in the way, like we have an agenda. I think it's the agenda bit that gets in the way. And I think normally, I think you notice it more with me and my family. If I'm talking to my family about stuff, there's more of an agenda, there's more of a need for them to hear this. So I sort of go a bit preachy or teachy. Whereas if I was having the conversation with someone on a one-to-one call, I'd probably come across a lot more relaxed and do a lot more listening. So I think one of the things you'll notice is there's a lot of overthinking about a way to do this and a way that you need to be, and you have no idea the benefit of just having a teacher listening or a teacher taking the time to even try and explain something to you. I think just another human being really, really wanting to help does something for us as human beings. So that's all that really came to my mind. I think you look like you've got loads of points to make about this.
I don't know if I can read it though. Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting one. But I think the first thing that comes to me is like, what's this individual's goal? What are they hoping? What are they hoping for the outcome to be? Are they wanting somebody to have a deeply profound spiritual experience? Are they wanting people to just feel better? Either or both? I don't know. What's the goal? And there is something about this conversation. You know, everybody on this screen's here because they've been touched. And if you've clicked on this in YouTube and you're watching this in catch up, you've either been shown
Made
it,
it this far.
yeah, well, you've either been shown it by somebody who has been touched and somebody said, "Here, look at this," and somebody who's had life has been kind of changed through gaining some form of insight, or you know, you've had insight yourself. And you know, but that's how human beings grow. We grow through insight. And I feel like this individual is, you know, and what I was going to say was we tend to, all right, love, God bless. Thank you so much for being here, Amanda. Love you loads, love. Go and get your sleep. When people come across this, seems to be this movement towards wanting to help the next person. That's one thing I really notice. You know, every single person on this screen will have said something. They will shared a little bit of information with somebody, or perhaps they've shared lots of information over the years with people. You know, they'll have shared from the wisdom that they discovered. They'll have wanted to give it away to the next person. You know, and I feel like that's where this lady's at. She's at this place where she wants to give away her discovery and what she described as being discovering she wasn't broken. You know, there's so many people who are traumatized, who believe that they are broken, that they are ill, and you know, the discovery that you are not broken is one of the most profound, uplifting, phenomenal experiences one can experience in a lifetime. And I remember I emailed her back and said, I do hope you know you are one of the luckiest people on the planet. Respect that, because most people don't know that. And I think when it comes to sharing with people, going back to your going back to the agenda thing, you know, I can't make anybody hear anything. It's not down to me. I can't make anybody think anything. I can't make anybody have insight. That's down to the individual. That's down to them. All I can do is I can share from what makes sense to me, from what changed my life, what I've come to know. Like Wendy was saying earlier on, and Jen was just saying, you know, just sitting down and listening, just letting somebody be heard can be one of the most powerful things. You know, giving somebody your time, your undivided attention. My brother-in-law, my new brother-in-law, is not actually my brother-in-law, but let's keep it simple. He said one of the greatest gifts you can give anyone is your attention. And I totally agree with him. One of the greatest gifts you can give anyone is your attention. Just giving somebody the time to listen to them, being there for them in that moment, fully present, hearing them, not knocking it back. Oh, you know, it's just a thought and all. I don't like that statement. I really don't like that statement. It's not, like Jenny says, it's not just a thought. It's all thought. You know, and hearing people out, and you know, and then at some point, if you listen, if you discover the now within yourself, if you see the now, if you truly see the now, if you truly come to realize the now, you'll see all suffering is based in time. It's already based in an illusion. And it's like, as you start to build up rapport, nobody will listen to somebody they don't trust. Nobody will listen to somebody they don't like. You know, but once you build up that rapport and you gain their trust and they respect you, nobody will listen to somebody they don't respect. Okay, and once you start to gain that respect, and you gain that respect through love, through connection, through presence, then you can start to share your wisdom. You know, we never know what somebody's going to bring to us. We never know. You know, usually when we do these community groups, this one's been a bit different, but usually we go, right, you lot, bring us stuff. We never know where the conversation's going to go. But because we've seen what we've seen, we can usually steer the direction in a conversation in a direction that we hope is useful for people. But it's always got to be simple, otherwise it wouldn't be truth. And it's truth that sets people free, but the truth lies within them, and the truth that you're trying to guide people towards is something you cannot take them to. You can't drag them there. You can only guide them there, but the guidance is to within themselves, to the wholeness within themselves, to the fact that they are the creator of their experience of life. You see, in the first half of this call, this video, this whatever the hell this is, this community group, it was very much about a conversation about people believing that they're victims. Okay, and again, no disrespect. But when an individual wakes up from out of that trauma and realizes I'm the creator, yes, it happened, but I'm the one who's kept it alive. I'm the one who I've been doing this to me. You know, when an individual realizes I've been doing this to me, they discover that they're the creator of their experience of life. They will stand in a power. They will find the power that lies within themselves that is so fucking powerful. It will blow them apart with pure love. It will heal anything that ever needed healing. People, you know, overcome cancers and things like this through these kind of realizations. Because the power that lies at the heart of every single living being is untouchably, phenomenally, infinitely powerful. And that is who and what we truly are, pretending to not be. And that's really what you can say those words and they mean nothing until there is the actual lived experience of it. And then the words become irrelevant. And then the words become inadequate. And then you realize the word quite often is just an intellectual fucking foreplay to hopefully the main event. Sorry. Which is a really good one. Yeah, but we can't make anybody hear anything. Oh, it is down to the listener. It is down to the person who hears. Why do some people hear and some people don't? Don't know. Perhaps they don't trust you. Perhaps they've already got a story. Oh, he's not even worth listening to. Here he goes again. Here she goes again. I don't know, it could be anything, or they're just not in the right space to hear. It's not their time to hear. When they're ready to hear, they will hear. And what makes them ready? I have no idea. But when people are ready to hear, they hear. Like Cole, was it last week? You said that so many times, Dave. And this time I really heard something. And it's like, when you're ready to hear, you hear. Otherwise, you think you've heard. And I remember Sid saying this in one of his tapes. He says, there's a big difference between hearing and hearing. And there really is. You can listen to people or you can hear them. And that's where the presence comes in. It's that being present with people and hearing them. And quite often and hearing somebody is listening to them without analysis, without thought, it's listening to them without intellect relating it to your own personal experience or something you've heard or something you've read or some kind of technique or label. But when you listen to somebody from a state of presence, quite often you're amazed what comes to you to say. Suddenly you'll find that you say something, you're like, where the hell did that come from? And they'll go, how did you know to say that? I don't know. It's just what occurred to me. It's because we're all gifted with the gift of conversation. We're gifted with the gift of communication, common communication, common language. We're gifted with it. We all know how to speak to one another, really. But one of the things that came to me when you said about your dad being a teacher, it's like, know your audience. I don't. Jenny's like, can you not swear? I don't know. But I always remember your dad telling the story about the kid who's like, he said, keep it simple. Keep it simple. And he told the story about the kid that went home to his dad and went, Dad.
Oh, it's about the one about not about where did I come from?
Yeah.
Oh no, so he's a little girl in the back of the car says to her dad, where did I come from? And the dad starts sort of going into this big explanation. I think she's about 8, about the birds and the bees. And then after a little while, his daughter just went, oh, my friend came from Birmingham. And he just said the importance of finding out what is the question.
Yeah.
And it's why he often, I think it's just something that I don't know if it's a real story. It's a story that's told to trainee teachers. And I think that's the cool thing. I used to find it really hard in social situations before coming across the principles, because I was so shy and insular. I was so self-obsessed. I couldn't help. I was only thinking about myself and how I felt and how I was going to come across. And it was quite nice then when I came across the principles, I realised I wanted to share this with people, but actually so much of sharing is about getting information from people, getting a feel for how do they see the world, like where is their understanding and where is their misunderstanding, because everyone at some point in their life has had an insight around the truth of this, but there'll be huge areas of like grey and misunderstanding that you can point out to people and you can explore together. So it's less about us and more about the person in front of you. And I always used to think, often if I'm not feeling very good, I need to cancel my calls today. And I thought I had to be in a good feeling to share. But actually what I started to realise is when you stop thinking about how you're feeling and how you're doing and you just show up with someone, you fall off your mind and you get present. And actually that's all that you need to do. And I feel like sometimes I've felt like I've been completely inadequate and a bit awkward maybe on a call. And I'm like, wow, that didn't seem to go so well. And then the next call comes along and there's one thing that I said or one thing that was heard that was helpful. So don't underestimate, I think was the other thing I thought when I read the question is, don't underestimate some of the little things you might have dropped in. And sometimes, you know, it might be that you've retold someone's story, or you've said something that you've heard 10, 20 other teachers say, but actually in that moment it was perfect for that student, and they heard it too. So it's that not underestimating. And I always used to think I had to be fresh in the moment, so I couldn't tell an old story. It was actually sometimes an old story from like 20 years ago now pops into my mind to tell, or an insight I've had 10 years ago suddenly feels fresh again, and I want to talk about it. So when I took out that kind of restriction of I have to always be fresh in the moment, I thought that meant content. But actually what I feel like that points to is, now when you're present in the moment, what comes to you in that present moment might be a story from the past, but it's relevant and perfect now. And that took a lot off my mind, because I was like, right, I need to keep having new like insights I can share with people. I can't share what happened 10 years ago. So we always say it's the easiest and the hardest job in a way, because you can't make someone hear. And you can love someone dearly, and you can so want them, and you can see kind of like, wow, if there's just this little like click in their understanding, everything would start to look different. But you can't get people to listen, and you can't get people to have insight, but you can show up.
Yeah. And I think it can be really amazing, like how much you think this has to be a certain way. So I think in one way is what you were just speaking to. It's like the magnitude of what you actually discovered, like this individual discovered she's not broken. Okay. That is so kind of obvious for me that I can almost start to see its irrelevance. But to the next person, to discover they're not broken is that life-changing moment. It's
I always
like,
say that was the power in Roger, when he didn't see broken people. He only saw, Roger Mills, the man who introduced me to this, he only saw it, what he called innate health, wholeness. And him seeing that in me did something for me, because I've been seeing therapists and stuff for, you know, nearly 10 years, and they all thought there's something wrong with me.
trying to figure out what's wrong with you.
Yeah. And also, you know, my mum and dad thought there was something wrong. They were sending me to all these different people to try and fix me. And suddenly there was a man stood there knowing, like he knew, that I was fine.
Yeah.
I was just caught up.
That's what Sue did for me. Yeah. But it's like, it's also like there was a man who came to a community group who's 20 years agoraphobic. And then he came to this community group, he said his body just stood up and walked out. And
To the community
to
group.
the community
Not
group.
out
Sorry,
the
yeah.
community group.
Sorry, he walked out of his house to community group, and he was terrified when he got there, wasn't he? And long story short, next day he sent us a message saying how that he'd left the house, taken the dog for a walk, and he was been out the house for 5 hours. He was at the far end of town. He was free. And I asked him, I said on an interview, he's on our website. I asked him, I said, you know, like, what was it? Was there anything in particular heard? He said, you heard that helped facilitate this change? And he said, yes. I said, can you tell us what it was? And he went, when you said that the past no longer exists, it's a thought in the mind. He said that changed everything. To me, that's so obvious. It's really easy for me to take for granted what I discovered and think it's so kind of, it's really easy for me to not kind of realize the magnitude of these things. You know, we think we have to have seen to a certain depth in order to help somebody else. We think we have to be this person who's had this whatever kind of experience before I start helping people. It's not true. Help people from your heart. You help people with love. What is it that heals? What did the great teachers of this world come into this world and teach us? Was there a single great teacher that came into this world and said, berate each other, knock 10 shades of shit out of each other, create an atom bomb, lob it at one another? Or did the great teachers of the world come in and say, love one another? You know, it's the person who helped me, Sue, who helped me, she came from a deep space of love.
Or she was lit up from the inside,
Yeah.
wasn't she, with what she'd seen?
Absolutely. And she helped me find my love. And I remember watching Sid Banks, and I remember looking at his eyes as he spoke. I only saw a couple of little videos, and I could see the sincerity in his eyes. His eyes glistened with sincerity. He was sincere. He was sincere in telling everybody that they were whole. He was sincere in telling everybody this is an illusion. Don't take it so seriously. You are all okay. It's not real. You just think it's real. You're all fine. The sincerity in his eyes, the trust I had for that man, because I could look into his eyes and go, yeah, you're right. Then I could hear it. You know, share from the magnitude of what you've discovered. You may think it's small, it's not. There is no such thing as a small insight. Share from it. And I think the other thing, I remember when I was going through I was having an affair. Have you given me that cup of tea?
Mm.
I was having an affair with when I was with my first wife, and I really messed my head up. I was in a really bad place with it, and I didn't want to be that man. And suddenly I find myself, it's my life. Anything I've had judgment about, I've lived. And it's been a very humbling journey, this life. And I remember hitting this kind of rock bottom shelf when I was having this affair, and I'd ask anybody for help. And I remember this man, he just, I can't even remember who the hell said it, but it was a male voice. He said, "You know what, Dave? You're not the first, and you certainly won't be the last." And he walked off, carried on doing whatever he was preoccupied in doing. I can never tell that man what that did for me, how that changed everything. That one statement. I remembered, oh, this isn't just happening to me. This is happening to thousands of millions of people throughout their life. I am not on my own, and people make it through. I remember that so clearly. That's before I came across the principles. You know, just that little bit of that throwaway comment. I can't even remember who the hell that man was to thank him. And he certainly wouldn't have known what he did to my life. But that little throwaway comment, you see, it was just a throwaway comment to him. But to me, I heard something in it. I heard it. You're not the first, Dave. This has happened to many before you. You're not the last. This is going to continue happening to other people too, because it's what happens to some human beings. And let go of the agenda. Let go of the goal. The goal is a limitation.
I remember one of the first times I kind of shared with someone outside of friends about what I'd come across was I trained in something called Dr. Hauschka, which was like a holistic treatment, like facials and things. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do at that point, so I thought, well, I'll get a few things under my belt. And that night I'd gone and had a meal on my own in the hotel, and for me it was huge because I never would have done that because I just felt so self-conscious and thought everyone would think I had no friends and blah 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 blah. And then later on, some of the other women who were on the course were in the bar, so I went and sat with them, and then one of them was asking me, you know, what I did and interests, and I started telling her about the principles, and it was, I think I'd come across the principles in May, and I was doing this training in I want to say like August, maybe October time. I can't quite remember. So it was all really new, but I felt alive with it. I felt alive with what the principal did. It'd woken something up in me, and that kind of sincerity to want to be able to help someone else have their own experience was there. And like I stumbled over words, and I was trying to remember things that I'd been told, but I couldn't really remember what I'd been told. And so it's just like this, but it was a really beautiful conversation. And this woman was someone that really inspired me, because she was probably like 20 years older, and she was kind of a massive hippie, and we just had this lovely connection. And then the next morning I got a text message saying, I've been wanting to text you since I think like 3 a.m. She had the biggest insight, and I've got to meet up with you. So then at breakfast, she'd had this huge insight around forgiveness and her ex-husband, and how he had been doing the best he could, given how he was thinking in the moment. And she'd held him to that for like 20 years, I think, at that point, and had hated him and had lived the feeling of hating him for that amount of time. And I hadn't spoken really about anything like that. And I think that was a thing that I found really intriguing about this understanding, is sometimes I'd have conversations with random people, but the insight they had would be so powerful for their life, and it would have nothing to do with what we'd been talking about, which is why I think the principles in themselves are so powerful, because they point to something before the creation of form, and people get a feel for that, and then it starts teaching them. Because that's what I found on my first course, was I became my best teacher, because I didn't have to keep looking out there. I could look to the beyond the Jenny. It wasn't Jenny that was the best teacher. It was beyond that, before that space, that intelligence. And then I felt deeply connected to everyone as well, because I wasn't separate or different. I just had created this little character, this little me that was, insignificant and needed to try and be invisible. But actually, that deeper power, that deeper love, is what changes and wakes up in people. And it is beyond the words. And the words can be a powerful, powerful way of describing and sharing and pointing. But I feel like being inspired and alive with what you feel that you've seen, that will come across when you speak to people. And then the words aren't as important. And I know I've listened to talks before where I felt like you had such amazing feedback, and I remember being at the front of the room and just feeling so like buzzy. It's like, wow. And then the feedback and the shifts and the insights people were having. And then I've watched that talk back. I'm like, oh my God, what was I talking about? That was, oh God, I completely messed that story up. But that wasn't the feeling I was in when I was sharing. So I think it is simpler than we think.
Mm.
And the amount of people, like you say, like some of the teachers that really did something for you as a young person were just the ones that gave you time, listened, and saw you as a good
Yeah.
person. And I remember you saying when you were in prison, one of the officers
Yeah.
or guards said to you, do you think you're a bad man? And you said, I must be, I'm in here. And he said, you're not.
He said, I don't.
Yeah, I don't. And that did something for you. So it's all those moments really where someone, I don't know, helps you see something differently.
Yeah. And it's like, if you can help somebody just find hope. Oh, you changed. You found change. Yeah, I did. Yeah. Yeah. Think I could have that? Yeah. I know you can. It's like that hope. You've instantly already changed.
Oh, can you leave the door open? Thank you.
That hope has instantly changed that individual's reality. It's instantly changed their experience. It's already elevated their frequency of being, because now they're in hope. See, it's really not that difficult. And all we're looking to do is raise their frequency, raise our frequency of being, help other people raise their frequency of being, raise their level of consciousness, the same thing. All right, Dan.
Yeah, I was just I was just gonna say, I think I think a lot of my not understanding, I feel like a lot of my I don't want to say recovery. Can I say recovery? A lot of it, a lot of it, since I think where I am now compared to where I was like 2 years ago, perhaps, where it was just anxiety ridden all the time, 24 hours a day. Even when I used to wake up in the night because I was so like tense and like anxious. And I think one of the biggest things for me is like it's the knowledge and comfort from someone else that they're saying that it's like a nice difference between going to the doctors and them saying, oh well, you've got this and you've got that and like you need to take this and you need to take that. But then when you actually sit and listen to someone saying, do you know what, yeah, you are okay, it's just this is just what's happening. There's that the things that are happening in your life doesn't mean that you're mentally ill or you've got I don't know. I think I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I think what I am trying to say is that I think one of the main things that really helped me was more the fact of people like primarily you guys saying it's okay, like you're not ill, like, and I think that's one of the biggest things for me was the acceptance of you're not ill, you're actually quite normal just to feel these feelings and like it it's just it's part of life, it's just where it is. And I think that's it, it's just having that person there, which is a really refreshing difference from going to the doctors and them saying to that, like a doctor saying to you, or you're mentally ill, you need to go to this place, you need to take this. But then when actually thinking about it, it's so because for some people going to the doctors, it's like oh yeah, really done that really well. But to me, it doesn't answer it. It does. I'm not saying it's a cure, but it's the I think the way forward to me, in my opinion, is just the pure acceptance of knowing that you are actually okay. That's what to me that's where it boils down to. Like I can probably say I'm a bit of a hypocrite for it because even though that regardless I 100% agree that I know I'm okay. Like sometimes life is shit and it does tell you like that like you like I'm a bad person, like I've had intrusive thoughts like you're a bad person or like you've got something wrong with you, like you've got cancer or you've got like a brain tumor and stuff like that. This is all the stuff that goes through like my head like on a daily basis because it's just that's what I've known for 12 years. That's all that's ever happened. It's always been like, oh, what's that cough? Or oh, what's that feeling in my arm? Or oh, what's like why is my foot twitching? Or why am I getting these thoughts of like hurting people and stuff like that? And it's always because every time I've tried to seek for help, it's been like well, why don't we try this? And why don't you take that? And why don't you like do these exercises? And like why don't you think about it this way and that? Da, da, da. And I think to myself sometimes I think that the thing that really brought my awakening was the knowledge of knowing that I'm just all right. I'm just a normal person. There's no different because I think that there's a big thing of like selfishness, but not in the negative way. It's like people thinking that it's they're individual because of the way that they're feeling. So like it's like, oh, I feel anxious. I shouldn't really say anything about it. Or nobody else can feel like this. Surely that's like this is why I feel so crap because it's just happening to me. But then again, I just keep going back to the fact of we are just okay. We're just getting on. Like it's just life like that. Like there's physically nothing wrong with you. And I feel like that if people learnt that and were told that earlier, we wouldn't have like the issues that people have now. And I think that's why I'm very grateful for you, for this, because it's even though the people have been, my mum's been telling me for years that I'm okay because I didn't listen. Like I feel like that it's having that group of people that are the same, have that same like aspect and same like outlook, that we are just okay and we need to accept the fact that life is shit sometimes, but it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you. That's the way that I'm looking at it. I don't know where that come from, mind. I can't really remember because I've gone on for that long now, but yeah, that's what I got from that.
Nice, so done. Nice. It's nice. And your mum was right. Tell her. Tell her. Tell her now in front of us. Like,
Oh
go on.
God. Right. Hold on. Get your phone out, man. Record it. Get your phone- This is the first. This is the first time in 35 years that this is going to happen. So it's probably going to be the last as well.
Okay,
Yeah.
go on. Off you go.
You're taking a run up.
You were right.
Thanks, son. I always knew I was.
What a moment. That was tender. Oh, thanks, Dan.
Yeah, no worries.
Have you got your picture yet? Has your picture come yet?
Yes, it come on Saturday, I think. I'm genuinely I'm looking for someone to frame it. Like I want someone to. No, I'm not joking because me and Alex are moving house, and I want it framed so I can put it in my office.
Can
So I
you
was
send me
thinking,
the picture of that? Because that
yeah,
it'll be
of
my
course, well,
first
I
frame
need to
seascape.
find a framer. I don't know what the name of them are, but I need to find someone that will do it.
Angus. Div!
Hello, hi. How
Hi.
are you?
We're very good. How are you, mate?
I think I might have forgotten what I was going to ask, but if I've got a general gist of it, so if I'll try to, besides scrambling up the words, I'll try to have a go. I think it was something to do with Jenny. We're talking about the meeting or the initial highs and going to the groups of three principles and the feeling and all that. So maybe it's related to that, which brought up this question, but it's like I've been in this middle of conversations with various groups in the 3P, whether it's 3P UK or 3P GC or one on one or whatever. Anyway, and the general gist after 3, 4 years was you have your own wisdom, your own insights, which are your navigational tools or realizations or awakenings or whatever you want to call them. And whoever is the facilitator, and all beautiful people. I mean, I'm not putting anyone down. They have their own. But I really enjoyed the presence, even though 4 a.m. or some of them in the morning, like 5, 4, somewhere at 2 a.m., and then I went back to sleep. But the thing is, at some point, a thought, my thought, because I heard it spoken 3, 4 times somewhere else, convinced me that I'm using the 3P community, if that's the best word for it, as a coping mechanism. And I was like, oh, Div, you can't go on any more of when Aaron Turner is talking with a simple premise. It's beautiful. I love it when I go. And then I convince myself not to go because my thoughts had heard something else saying, oh, this is the same like that Carl Jung you're involved in for 10 years, which I love still. And this is the same as it's a coping, it's a tool, it's outside something, and you've got to find your own insight. So I sat twiddling my thumbs, waiting for insights, and simultaneously fucking my head up with all the rumination, worrying, overthinking. So nothing was due to come if there was no quiet mind welcoming of anything. And then at some point I said, oh, screw it. I'm just gonna go because I enjoy being in conversations in 3P group, and I hope I'm on the wise track on that one. Doing something because I just enjoy, and not hoping that they will become Mr. Insight. You know what I mean? Like, and also losing the thought of coping or not. It's just a belief, which can, the next thought might just say something else. So, am I on the right track here from your experience?
I don't know, Dave.
Even I don't.
I think when it comes to it, if you enjoy it, why not? What's wrong with it?
That's where I am at the moment.
Who's counting?
Yeah, who's counting?
You know what I mean? And wisdom. Wisdom is always going to be loving towards you.
Mm.
Wisdom would never put you down. It's the soul speaking to you. It will never put you down. It loves you unconditionally and it would never put you down. It will guide you. It will point things out, but it will never put you down. So any kind of thoughts that we have that are like, oh, you know, you're not doing this right, you're not good enough, you're even not good enough at this, using this as a coping mechanism now. It's like, I don't know. I mean, I haven't had that experience yet, the experience of not yours. So I mean, I don't know the ins and outs of your experience. However, if you're enjoying it, then what's the harm?
But yeah, for a while, it became the appearance of that thought becoming real. Like, oh, you've had many goes at coping mechanisms throughout your life, including AA, including that, including, and then all of a sudden I say, what you just say, Dave, which is, how come you wake up looking forward to a good engagement with Jenny, like even here with Dave and Jenny? What's wrong with that? You love it. So there you are.
I think it's great.
When's got go.
Wend, love you, Wend. See you soon, love. I think it's lovely, mate. And I tell you what, at least it's not crack.
Yeah. At least it's not alcohol
Yep.
or anything else. I have other distraction crap, but suddenly not the killer one.
And I also think you're listening to grow. I can't see any other reason why you would be here.
Yeah.
So, or anywhere, or listening to Aaron or whatever you listen to, like, you're there because you are aware that you can see something deep or deeper, and you are open to that. And you're also aware that this space is a space that is conducive for growth.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you look at it from a spiritual point of view, and if you look at it from the point of view that I hold personally, that life is a spiritual incarnation. Your soul is taking form in this physical dimension. We learn innately, therefore, learning must be purposeful. We're here to grow spiritually. We're here to discover love in this physical dimension and bring it into this world and share it amongst ourselves and discover more of our God self, discover in this mad hidden dimension of God, of love, we get to discover it hidden within ourselves. Like, that to me is the most virtuous journey anybody can take, and then to share it with the next person.
Yeah.
So
I was also thinking, like, to be grateful for the fact that you can sit and listen to some of these talks.
yeah,
Like sometimes in the morning when I'm like, oh gosh, I've been awake half the night at least. From 7 till 7. She's going to be asking me questions. We're going to have a fabulous day, but it's going to be up full on. And by the time she's gone to bed, I'm not really good for anything. And I couldn't listen to a talk, so I sort of just stay quiet most of the time. And the idea of being able to just log on for a talk just for the laugh or just for the interest, I'm like, that's amazing. And how many people are, you know, watching hours and hours of television or series, or it's nice, this is more engaging, you're connecting. And I think that's the nice thing about a community. And I think a lot of us would have lived in community, you know, for a lot, well, we lived in community. We had elders in the community. If we had something on our mind we could go to, or or the medicine person. And I don't know, I feel like in so many ways we've got quite isolated people around the world. And I think to have an online community is our way of sitting down and having a cup of tea with somebody else who's interested in similar things to us.
Yeah.
Um,
Like your tribe, isn't it?
yeah, and I think that's a lot often what people find is actually a lot of people in my life is not really interested to speak about this kind of stuff. And when they drop into one of these conversations, they know they're not going to be judged. They can ask any question, and it's just community. I think if you're constantly listening to things, looking to be fixed or looking for the answer, you're almost not giving yourself the respect and the
Acknowledgement.
time, yeah, to
Mm.
find and listen to yourself to what comes up. But it doesn't sound like you're doing this 24/7, so enjoy it when you can, and also listen to yourself. Like with the same respect that you listen to Dave and I or Aaron or anyone else.
Mm.
Like listen to yourself. And be, I'm sure you're discerning with us. I don't think you agree with everything that comes out of our mouths. Be discerning, but like Dave said, wisdom wouldn't come in a negative. Maybe sometimes it's like, you know what, you've been doing too much of this. Why don't you have a break? Go for a walk, go for a swim,
Yes.
and sit and look at the sunset. Like, but it's moment to moment. It's not like a rule.
Yeah. It's good not to add overwhelm. You know, from my past habitual way of learning or not unlearning is happening here, but in the past there's a lot of learning, and it was like, oh, it was a bit like course A, B, C, D, schedules A1, 2, 1, like thousands and thousands, and I brought that initially here, like, oh, I better attend coach session A and session B and this and that, and 3 till 6 a.m. But it's all quietened down, and now it's more like being drawn to this the opposite of what I lived in my head while drinking, and after that also, and before that drinking became alcoholic, was shut off in my own thinking making machine, and then sitting in a bar 6 glasses of wine later, the world felt better because I was numbed to everything. And this is another whole way. I mean, I'm 18 years sober, so it's not like it was yesterday. But what I'm trying to say, I guess, is the connection, the belonging, the joy, the underlying joy of an honest, non-judgmental, beauty-laden conversation, and revel in it, and without any seeking anything else after that. But the follow up of the day in being in engagement in honesty and love and truth is generally a much better day without asking for it. So I think I'm on the right track on that one. I think so anyway. Before
sounds-
another thought derails me.
Sounds to me like you need to stop now, Div.
I think, yeah, I've got a day to go for now. Ours is, what day is it today there? Monday, right?
I don't exist in time
Is
anymore.
it your Tuesday, I think.
Tuesday, 8 a.m. And from sorry, it was just before I shut up, the week after, I'm going to Europe for 5 weeks.
Oh, wow.
So your 7 p.m. will be in Italy, 8 p.m. Normally 1 hour ahead.
Okay.
So I might be able to catch you on the same day rather than eons away in Australia, but that'll be good.
Oh, nice, Div.
Yeah.
If you come to the UK for any reason, come and say hello.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. I used to come to once a year for a long time before the pandemic. All my what we call relatives, all my relatives are in London and Leicester and God knows where else they are. But I haven't come since. But thank you for that. Thanks.
Oh, please do, Div. And thank you for coming and being part of this. You always bring
Well,
something of value.
yes, I love it. I love being here. Thank you. I gotta still catch up on your YouTube and work on the conference. No, the retreat you had 3 days.
Ocean of Freedom. Yeah.
Colin put it. Yeah, thanks, Colin, for the link. Thank you.
Thanks, Cole. Thanks, Div. All right. Does anybody else want to say anything? Cole.
Just a quick one, because I'm aware of the time now.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
what Jenny mentioned about, feel free to learn, and I know you've mentioned that before, and I do. And I know, was it last week or the week before that you said perhaps one of the most important things that you think about is that word noticing, but not so much think about, but you notice. And I've been watching Eckhart Tolle. He has a YouTube channel. I never even realized it, but within that channel he has a playlist, and it's called Eckhart's Teachings. And there's one of them he goes big on noticing, and I thought, wow. So, and to cut a long story short, because I know it's late, but it's not only he sort of advocates not only noticing your thoughts, because then you're automatically present, but noticing your body, your feeling, and even separately, well, perhaps not, but noticing your emotions. And the noticing the body, I found that's quite profound. You can sit there, and he even goes, I mean, at first I thought, was this a bit of a technique? But it's not, because he says, like, notice your hands, how they feel, and notice your feet, and then all the way up the body in a wave of noticing, and all the way back down again in a wave of noticing. And of course, all the time you're doing that, you're not thinking, your mind's quiet. So I just thought I'd expand on that, or mention it, because I know you're big on noticing, and clearly so is he. And I'd never heard you talk about noticing the body, the feeling of your body. That's no disrespect, by the way. That's
No, not at all.
he clearly does. So that's it. I just wanted to share that with whoever's left. Hello. And that was it.
That's cool, and I love that, Cole,
Yeah.
because to me, this whole conversation is it's noticing.
Yeah.
There's nothing to do as such. It's like there's nothing to do in the principles. Sid said this over and over again. There's nothing to do. But what you do is you become aware. That's another word for noticing. You become aware. But noticing seems like a more less abstract word to use for people. Like, what do you want me to do with this information, Dave? The reason why I said that noticing became a big kind of awareness thing for me was a man said to me, what do you want me to do with this information? I said, I just want you to notice it. I just want you to notice the truth. And as I said it, I was like, that's what this whole conversation is. The whole of life is a note. This whole conversation of the three principles conversation is, it's a noticing. It's a noticing of truth. It's noticing of the nature of reality. It's the noticing of the constants of life. It's a noticing of what's real as opposed to what isn't. It's all a noticing. And like I say, the other word you could use for that is becoming aware or something like that, and
Paying attention.
Paying attention could be, it could be. Yeah, depending on the way we're using it. Yeah, certainly. Paying attention, yeah. But yeah, no, it's cool. Thanks, Cole. But it's true, it's unlike people say, other people speak about this. And Sid Banks said this. He said, well, there's only one truth. So of course other people are going to speak about it. There is only one truth. So like you said, it's not hidden from you, you're hiding from it. Notice it. Notice the truth hidden in plain sight, like my stone circle last week.
Yeah.
No, all right, everyone. Cole, thanks for that, man.
Thank you.
Love you
Thank
all.
you.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Thank
Thank
you.
you so much. Like I say, anybody who wishes to make a donation, freedomthinking.co.uk on PayPal, or get in touch, info@freedomthinking.co.uk. I'll put the link in the description below.
Thanks.
Get in touch with us and let us know how you're getting on.
All
Love
right.
you, everyone.
Lots of love.
God bless.
Bye.
Bye.
God bless.
Bye.